Hola, buenos dias. So it's good to be back at CAS, and also great to see a lot of familiar friends and in the audience as well. So over the years coming to Spain, I made a lot of good friends, and I'm very happy to have business here as well, and then be able to see you all. So this talk is, I'm going to set some expectations. This talk is still like a work in progress. I've been looking back at my career. I've been in the industry for 22 years, but my first contact with Agile projects was about 14 years ago. And I cannot hear myself. Yeah, cool, thanks. And in the past 14 years, there was one project, Agile project, that I really felt that everything worked as we expected from Agile. And that was probably back in 2008 or 9. So since 2004, I worked for a lot of consultancy companies, joined a lot of Agile projects as developer, as team lead, or as a transformation agent, or whatever name people give to those things these days. And I also have my company where we also help clients to improve their the way that they deliver software. But one project in 14 years, and that was quite a while ago. So what do we mean by like worked as expected? It's difficult to define what a success for a project, for a delivery team is. But so the way that I try to measure that is it sounds a bit cheesy, but like, is the degree of happiness of everyone involved. And that means the sponsor, the product owners, clients, developers, QAs, architects, or whoever was involved in the project, they really felt that they were working well with each other. So it disappoints me because even within our company, we are not doing well. And I'm not blaming other companies. Like even in ours, it's not perfect. It's not as we expected. There's frustration. There's every single project, there is a frustration somewhere. Either the stakeholders, or the developers, or the QAs, or the POs, someone is frustrated, and quite often more than one person. So why are we in this situation still after all these years? Why I cannot fix that, even within our organization? So that triggered a lot of internal discussions in our company, and they are still ongoing. And it's like, what's wrong? So it made us look at a few things. First of all, we said, like, what is the goal of a delivery team? So we need to start from there, right? So some of the things that we discussed was, well, maybe it should be a continuously and efficiently enabled business evolution. It's quite vague, but that's what it should be about. Right, there are a few items in terms of reducing lead time. So basically what we want to do or to provide as a delivery team is to enable the promise that is business agility. That was the promise, right? So why are we not achieving that? And then we started introspecting. One of the things that we discussed was possibly it's difficult to pinpoint one thing, but possibly one of the biggest problems that we find is in the team composition. The demands of the business, and they change over time, the different missions and stuff. So the composition of the team quite often is not well aligned to what the team wants to achieve. But there is a more fundamental problem. No one knows what the team needs to achieve. So if you go to the organization, who is creating this team? Who wants this team? So sometimes teams are created by one department, but is used in another department, so it's a bit of a confusion. Who needs that team? How that team is going to be used? Who belongs to that team? And then they try to optimize the composition of the team in a way that doesn't fit. And we were looking at the Scrum. So well, let's go back to Scrum. I know that today sometimes you mention Scrum today and say, oh, this is so last decade and stuff like that. But a lot of people will have a similar approach. So we just decided to go back and look at what Scrum says. It has 19 pages, right, the Scrum guide. So we look at it, and it's fascinating what is written in there. So for example, there is a Scrum team. So who is part of the Scrum team? Well, there is a Scrum Master. So first of all, there is a business owner, right? So there is a Scrum Master, there is a product owner, and there is a development team. This is already tells us a lot. Quite often, the product owners are not part of the delivery team. So we lost the notion that Scrum and even extreme programming 20 years ago had a concept called whole team that has the customer in it. So 20 years ago, both Scrum and XP were already talking about having business and technology together. But now what we see, we lost this concept. We just kept the development team as a concept. But in most of the organizations that I go to, the product owners don't sit with the teams. They are far away from the teams. The Scrum Masters, Agile coaches, they also don't sit with the teams. They had a bunch of developers there that someone is trying to give them to a product owner that might not even want. So, and this is not in one place, this is happening everywhere. So while we have this, it will be very difficult for those teams to perform. So if you go back to how many product owners do we have in the room? Let's see how much, oh shit, I'm in trouble. So, so let's see what, some of the things that are part of the product owner's role. First and foremost, should be part of the team. There's no such a thing as the team is not performing. You cannot just throw that to the developers and say, hey, the team is not performing. If you are a product owner, you are part of the team, right? So then, the product owner is responsible for maximizing the value. This is only in the Scrum guide, by the way. Maximize the value of the product resulting from the work of the development team. Basically what this means is it's responsible for ensuring that the product creates value for its customers, for its sponsors, and from the business providing that system. So it's the role of the product owner to make sure that the thing is valuable, whatever is being produced by the team. So we still struggle today to find product owners that can express the business value of a single feature. Or even like, what is the goal? What are the business outcomes that we want to achieve in 3 months? So if we cannot even have that small direction, how on earth delivery teams will do something useful? So a product owner is the sole person responsible for managing the product backlog. That made a lot of sense to me in the past, because we were coming from the dark ages. So having someone centralizing the ownership of the product, of the backlog, was probably the right thing to do. But nowadays, with modern software development, I find this sole responsibility very weak. And the reason being is that a lot of the product owners are proxy product owners. They're not the people with the vision for the business. So, and they don't understand much about what technology can do. So keeping the two separate creates a problem, because a very common symptom that I find everywhere is we have a backlog defined by one person, but then we have, so that's the formal backlog, and then we have all the informal backlogs. We have the bugs that is in Jira somewhere, hidden. We have the technical debt backlog, that is that bucket of shit that you just put stuff on it and never remove, right? So you have all those things, and then you have the architects that want stuff done, then you have the CTO that wants stuff done, then you have the operations that want stuff done, then the head of QA that wants stuff done, and the compliance if you're in a regulated environment, and risk management if you are in a bank. All those people are throwing stuff somewhere, but not in the official backlog. And then everyone is surprised that it's not working. So this is why I think that a single person with a single view of what needs to be done is not good anymore. We should be able to unify that, and the whole team should own that. So I think that we are now having a bit of a bottleneck as well. There is another problem with backlog management. So in Scrum, one of the roles of the product owner is to clearly express the product items, the items in the backlog. What do I see more often? Developers begging some time with the product owner to clarify some user stories. How many teams are now trying to say, look, we need to better define this? And this is happening because the product owners are not part of the team. They say, like, I have too many other things to do, and I have this delivery team that I need to look after. So, hey, those are some half-baked ideas. Get on with it. While, in fact, if the product owners were part of the team, they would be the ones going to the team like, are you sure that you understood? Let's work together. Let's make sure that we are on the same page. So this will come directly from the product owner and not the other way around. So when you talk to agile coaches, so what they focus on? Oh yeah, there is some miscommunication somewhere, right? So let's try to run a retrospective. Sometimes the product owner is not even there. And then what they focus on, oh, we need to define how we write user stories and acceptance criteria. No, we should fix the problem of the separation. Having a well-defined template for acceptance criteria in user stories is a solution. The real problem, the real root cause is that the person in charge of the product doesn't make the effort to look after the product and make sure that whoever is building the product, you are all in the same team. And then we have the Scrum Masters. I don't think we need them. Right? So Scrum Masters as a role, Scrum is too simple for that. We still need people to coach. We still need people to help the teams and everyone involved to understand how they should work. But I personally don't like the role of a Scrum Master. I think that Scrum Master is a very small role in a much wider role that is agile coaching or transformation agent or whatever you call them these days. But the developers are not off the hook, because it looks like, because I come from a development background, you might be thinking, okay, so he's going to now criticize everyone, but the developers are great. And if everyone did their job, the developers would fly and build all this amazing stuff. No, they suck as well. So the problem is that we also don't understand the problems. We developers also don't have a clue. We know that we have all these problems and we don't know how to solve. So I think that everyone needs coaching, or everyone needs to understand how a process should work. But what I don't like to see is, for example, people that are there without accountabilities. So I have an issue with some of the, how some people are playing the agile coaching role. Again, right, there are good and bad professionals in every single industry. So don't think that I'm bashing all them all. Like, there are great developers, there are shit developers, there are great product owners, there are shit product owners, right? So, but I think that what is missing here is that the agile coaches have zero accountability. And they are reactive. They are there. I don't know, in some organizations, I don't even know where they belong, who hired them. They just appeared out of nowhere, right? So, and they are there. And then they are there, walking around. So, oh, someone is complaining somewhere. Okay, let's do a retrospective. And then they go on. And then someone is complaining about somewhere. Are you talking to each other? And then they go on. So, but if the team is doing well, oh, see, we are fixing your process. If the teams are not doing so well, I'm going to speak to them, but you know, they're not very good. So they have zero accountability. They can do whatever the hell they want. They have pass free. So if that is the role of an agile coach, we don't need them at all. But anyway. So then we have the Spotify model that is pretty cool. A lot of people talk about it. Say, wow, that's amazing. Let's copy that. So There are a lot of similarities between the Spotify model and Scrum. A lot. One of the differences is that they can use different processes according to their needs. But product owners, they are part of the team. The team has a clear mission. It's a cross-functional team, well-defined mission, normally a long mission that will span for a few months, if not a year or more. But the business, technology, all the members are part of the team working together. And I love how they say that there's loosely coupled, tightly aligned squads. I really love that when they say they are empowered, they have their mission, they are empowered to do things, but they are aligned to a wider vision. Right? So they also have the agile coaches in there, but agile coaches are just helping people to adapt their process according to their needs as they go along, instead of prescribing one single methodology. Let me tell you something. You cannot just rename things and think that it's going to be okay, because it's not. Right? So a lot of people now are, the same way that we took product managers and made them like product owners, now it's the same. Now we have squads, a squad master. There's no squad master. They don't exist. If you want to reuse your Scrum Master, it's not just renaming them, right? Okay. I promised myself that I would not rant too much, so. Okay. So, this is a common organizational structure that I find almost everywhere. We have some stakeholders, and in there, I'm going to add a few people, for example, the CTO, some architects, operations, not only business stakeholders, but a lot of people that have a saying or have needs. But what quite often we have is a team of product owners. And then we have a team of developers with sub-teams. And then we have the agile coaches somewhere. So then, everyone is going to the developers, telling them what to do. So the stakeholders say, like, you proxy product owners, I want this done. The proxy product owners say, like, shit, I don't even, team, do something with this, because someone is in my neck here. And then the agile coach say, oh, yeah, I was hired, so let's do some meetings. Let's do some, I don't know, let's talk to each other, right? And then all these guys are like, who the hell is our boss here? So what do I do, right? So who do I work for here? I have all these different people asking me to do things, but what do I do? And that's where we find that's the most common situations we have. So, and of course we have all these problems that I was mentioning, right? So, but for me, the key thing is that there's too many people telling someone, a small group of people what to do. And of course, they're not going to satisfy anyone. Of course, there will be a lot of people unhappy. So, look at this. This is not new. This is 20 years old. Extreme programming was talking about that. Scrum was talking about that. You say, wow, wouldn't it be a great idea if we had a business need and we identify who are the people that could resolve that business need, put them together in the same team, and let them get on with work. Wouldn't it be awesome? So, in order to move forward, but even in the places that I've seen that, and there are places that I've seen that, where business, technology, developers, whoever was involved, they were part of a cross-functional team. Even in that scenario, we still had problems. Because it's not just because you put the right people together, and believe me that even in our company, so well, there's all these people talented. As soon as you put them together, the English football team, right? So a lot of talented players, put them together, they lose to everyone, right? So that's the same thing. So even when you put them together, what is missing is some way, they agree on a way of working. So this is what we've been discussing recently. Let me see how much time I have. I believe that there's no single way to solve problems, right? This is an extremely complex problem, so by no means I'm here to say, hey, do that and all your problems are solved. There's no way, right? But this is some of the things that we can try. One of the things is assuming that the right people are in the same team, and business and technology are the same. If one fails, everyone fails. If everyone wins. Assuming that, they could start establishing a working agreement. Because there is a thing called raci matrix that allows you to do that in a more precise way. But what we were discussing is, what if we could, as a delivery team, have a working agreement with everyone that we need to interact with, internal and external. So what I'm going to show to you is some of the ideas that we had, but this is a work in progress. So this was not going to work everywhere. So the important thing is that there is a list, there is an agreement. I'm going to show some of the ideas that we have. First of all is when the team is created. This was quite a new addition, because we were realizing that some teams that already exist or they are created, there's no one that owns them. They are there but satisfying too many people. So having someone that can take all these stakeholders, identify the real business need, identify who can contribute, and then say, I'm going to sponsor this team is useful. And then the sponsor and the stakeholders together could seed the team. And then the team should grow on its own. So basically, the team should have the right to have one sponsor and well-aligned stakeholders. However, if you have these rights, you also have responsibilities. So in order to have that right, we also need to have the responsibility as a delivery team to align the work that we do to business and technology, or whichever stakeholders were involved in the creation of the team, or the business sponsor, the main reason that that team was created. Right? So rights and responsibilities, they need to work hand in hand. So also what is important is, once this team is created, we want to empower them, but they need to make sure that, similar to Spotify model, they should not local optimize. They should play along with an overarching business goal, right? So another important right that a delivery team should have is define their own composition. If it's a brand new team, of course, that there will need to be a seed, and this seed should come from the business sponsor and the initial stakeholders. But once that seed is in place, they should grow the rest of the team according to the needs. So that includes, if they need to hire new people, they should be in the hiring process. If there are people in the organization that could join those teams, they should have a conversation. This was quite successful for us recently, where some people from our teams, we had new members joining our company, and before the person joined the team members had, we want to have a conversation with this potential new person, and explain what we expect for the person joining our team, and explain the context, the problems, and everything else. Also, not every team is a happy family, and some people sometimes don't perform. And the team should have the autonomy to escalate that and say, like, we would like to remove this team member. This also happened recently. So, also, they have the right to define their own composition. So, no one outside the team should start fiddling with that composition. However, as a responsibility, on the other hand, so if they want to control who is in the team, they also have responsibilities. And one of them is to provide continuity. So they need to make sure that the work doesn't stop because Bob is on holidays, or because someone left the company. Right? So also, they need to take into account, it's not to say, hey, we are going to define our team composition, so we are going to hire whoever and have whoever. No, the business has constraints. There might be financial constraints, there might be deadlines or whatever. So they are, at the end of the day, still working for the business. So they need to do their best work within the business constraints and not just start shouting, I want new people, or I want this or that. So, access to business strategy and stakeholders. Yeah, I think that that's a given, right? So a team cannot perform if they don't have access to the right people. So they need to be able to have a united strategy from the stakeholders, so that's a right. They cannot be always the ones firefighting all the multiple stakeholders, because this is also what's happening to a lot of teams. Once they are created, they are saying, okay, now you are on your own. Deal with all the possible stakeholders that you have in your organization. Some of them, they might be fine. They might be empowered to deal with them, but others, they won't. So they have the right to have access to business strategies and stakeholders. But they also have the responsibility, once they have access to all those people, and they know what needs to be done, they know what the business needs are, they have the responsibility to deliver value continuously, right? So they should not work on things that they don't know what they are for. They should always strive to continuous delivery, even if you're not deploying every day, but it should always be ready to deploy, right? So that's providing value continuously. So also focusing business outcomes, not just outputs. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Another thing that is a right for a team, they should have the right to define their own working process. So the needs of a team, so as the team progresses, they start working in different business needs, the set of stakeholders also change. The stakeholders are not a continuous thing. Some of them might be, others will not be. According to the milestones or the different areas that they are tackling, they might change the stakeholders. They might also change what they need to do. Sometimes they have a very well-defined business goals to achieve, and they know exactly how they want to achieve. Then it's just getting on with work. Other times they say, like, you know what, we need to stop a little bit and then try to do some prototypes, or, I don't know, do some research, collect some data. So that means that they will need to adjust their working process according to the situation that they are in. So they should have these rights. This is where an agile coach can be very useful. An agile coach that is not like just a person that comes in and now should do meetings. Is someone that is deeply involved with what needs to be done. This is for me when an agile coach will have value. They are deeply involved with the team that has the product owner inside. So the team has the business, has the technology, and the agile coach is deeply involved with that. They know exactly what they need to do, where they are and stuff. And then the agile coach can say, like, look, given the situation, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? So the agile coach becomes part of the solution, right? And they cannot just say, oh, the team is not doing well. No, if they're not doing well, it's your fault as well. However, if you want to have the rights to define your own process, you also have the responsibility to provide a professional service. So I think that what is really important to emphasize here is that, as I said, developers are not off the hook. What I'm seeing more and more are prima donnas. Developers are becoming prima donnas. There is a shortage in the market for developers. Every single company that is in here, if you walk down that alley there, all those companies, the reason that they are sponsoring here is not only to sell their services, it's because they want to hire, right? That's the number one reason for people to sponsor things. They want to hire. Because everyone is hiring, developers are becoming prima donnas. I want this, I want that, I want that, and if I don't have that, I won't do anything. Right? So if you want to rise, you need your responsibilities. And you need to understand that as a delivery team, it doesn't matter what you think about yourself. The person that tells you if you are doing well or not is your client. And the business is your client. Right? Your users are your clients. If they are not happy with you, you are not doing a good job. If you think you're doing a good job, and they don't think, you are in the wrong. So you need to prove to them that you are doing a good job. If it's missing visibility, or I don't know, some conversations, or you just suck. But like the thing is, you are there to provide a professional service. The only reason that you want all those rights is so that you can provide a good service. That is the counterintuitive part of it, because what we are asking sometimes is to say, enable the teams to work, give them those rights, so that they can provide you the value that you want, and the return on investment that you are having. But the team needs to understand that. So, this is a very important right for a delivery team. They should not be held accountable for things that they do not control. This forces us to think about the entire process. Because we cannot just go there and say, hey, we didn't deliver on time. Yeah, of course, like I never had a saying on anything. I cannot be accountable for that. Oh, we have bugs in production. Yeah, I cannot even touch production. I cannot even run my system locally to test. So, oh, you're being slow. Of course, like we are swamped by meetings, by many different people that we don't even understand why we are there. So you need to be careful that, so you cannot hold anyone accountable for things that they don't control, and that is valid for everyone. So then, this will lead us to a very interesting conversation across the entire department to figure out who the hell is accountable for what. But at the same time, you also have responsibilities, right? Assuming that you are only accountable for the things that you can control, well, you better make sure that the team is performing, because otherwise you cannot blame anyone. Right? It's your responsibility. You wanted these rights, you want this protection, you want this safe space to work, so you better do a good job. This is a very interesting thing. In most environments, we work in very complex environments. And quite often we need to deal, or a delivery team, you need to deal with a lot of things. There are some external things, but it's still within the company. And there are external things that are outside the company. Sometimes you need to work with other providers, right? So other people. And most of the teams are just left on their own devices to manage all of that. And that's what I was saying. Some of them you can handle. But some of them you have zero authority. If there is another company that is, I don't know, responsible for something else, and you need that thing, what are you going to do as a delivery team? So then you need to have the support from the business owner, from the sponsor, whoever this person that actually created and owned this team, in a way, to resolve those situations. But the counter to that is also that you need to work on the business best interest. Quite often we have blockages, external blockages. And the team will try to local optimize. They will start complaining that they want a problem to go away so they have an easier life. Oh yeah, this sucks. Hey, someone, can you fix that for me and make that go away? But not always that is the best thing for the business. So I think that the team needs to understand that certain things will be tough. But when you put everything into context, that is the right thing to do for the business as a whole. Yeah? Autonomy to create solutions, everyone wants that, right? So as soon as you say, who wants autonomy to do whatever you want? Say, hey, who wants to be accountable for that? Right? So there's always that trade-off. So autonomy is a complicated one because we think that autonomy is binary. You either have autonomy or you don't have autonomy. No, it's not. There are spheres of autonomy. And this needs to be agreed, what those spheres are. So if we want to as a delivery team, if you want to decide how we're going to work, how we're going to distribute work among ourselves, we should have full autonomy because this decision doesn't impact anyone outside the team. So for the things that don't impact anyone out the team should have full autonomy to fix. But as soon as whatever they want to do is start impacting people outside the team, that is a new sphere of autonomy. And in that new sphere, you need to bring everyone involved and then make a decision at that sphere. And if that will impact the business plans or the strategy or whatever, that's a new sphere. So we need to understand what are the spheres. So when you talk about autonomy, what are the boundaries of those autonomy? This needs to be clear. But if you have autonomy, that doesn't mean you can do whatever the hell you want. You still need to have commitment. Right, I want autonomy to do my job. Yeah, sure, but I'm paying for it. So what you're going to give, what you're going to deliver. So fine to have autonomy, do whatever you want, but I want commitments. I want deliverables. A delivery team should have the right to control either time or scope. They need to control at least one, ideally both. Remember that a delivery team, according to what I'm describing, the business is part of it. It's not that we have product owners in one side, business one side, developers on another side being told what to do, and they need to comply to that strategy over there. No, they are coming up with a strategy together. Business and technology as a single team, understanding problems. So in theory, if you have that, they they should control both. Right? If it's not the case, the development team should control at least one of them. Assuming that you can control time time or scope, so now you have control. So now you have a responsibility as well. You have the responsibility to maximize the value provided. You need to make sure that as you are controlling both, that you are working towards a business goal, that you are providing value. Whatever you do, make sure that there is value, that you are maximizing the return on investment on this team, right? So, and we also need to be very sensitive to deadlines and budget constraints. This is also important. It's not that I can do whatever. Again, there is an overarching goal. And in those overarching goals, there are constraints. There are things that we want to achieve. So the work that we do is inside those constraints. Exchange feedback regularly. So this is also a right. So this is not only across, so that has many different levels. Within team members, within the wider department, with sponsors, with the stakeholders and everything else. I think that is self-explanatory. I don't need to dwell too much on this. This is an interesting one. This was a source of quite a lot of debate, but I have a very strong view on this. Is there any? No, I won't. No. Is there anyone here that likes no estimate? Few people, a few hands. Okay, there will be a few people annoyed with me right now. I have a developer background, right? So I'm not saying as a manager. I think that our delivery team should have the responsibility to enable business to plan at different levels. And that means estimation as well. So, but then estimate is a very controversial. There is the whole no estimate hashtag with a lot of people being rude to each other and all this kind of shit, right? So I don't even get involved on Twitter because I don't think that is healthy debate often. I believe that the smaller level of detail, there is a law of diminishing return. So if we start trying to estimate the amount of time that's going to take to write one method, to rename a variable, this will have zero value. So the finer grain you go, less value that will have. So there is a law of diminishing return. However, we are providing a service. A team is an investment. So we need to be able to plan. What are we planning to achieve in the next 2 months? Or 3 months? Or 1 week? Or whatever. So, but at different levels. It doesn't need to be precise down to the user story. It doesn't need to be a single number. But it needs to be at least an educated guess, a range, The way that we normally do that, we try to give a range at different levels with a lot of assumptions and say, look, assuming that this is true, this might be a reasonable range. This at least allows us to plan, to have an idea where we are going, or even to make sure that it's viable to do something. If you have a backlog full of stuff, prioritizing is not about only importance to the business. This is one axis. Importance, as soon as you put cost and time, or the cost of not doing that, priorities will shift. One thing that is there, so wow, this would be great if we had that. Yeah, but it will take 6 months and cost God knows how much, while these other two here can be done very quickly. So this will completely shift things. So I think that delivery teams should enable businesses to plan. How we're going to do that, how far to go with estimates, we can debate that. So work with respectful teammates. I think that should be a right for the team. I think that is self-explanatory, right? So as soon as someone at some point will just blow up. So this needs to be controlled. So the team needs to be empowered they should have these rights. But they also have the rights to create, or the responsibility to create a respectful environment. So that is the other side, right? So they need to be given people that would fit well with that team, and they would choose those people, but they themselves have the responsibility to create a good environment. Experiment and learn. Teams should have the right to experiment and learn. Remember a very important thing, product owners and developers are all together, business and technology together. So what do we mean by experimenting and learn? This is not just about learning a technical framework. So if we think about a team as a whole cohesive unit with business and technology, learning and experimenting can be business. Can say like, what if we try out this experiment in here and see if we have an increase in the amount of users that we are acquiring, or if we increase the sales in there, or if you have some cost savings somewhere, or it can be a technical experiment. But they should have, in order to provide a good service, the autonomy or the right to experiment and learn. But they also need to have a commitment to excellence. And this has a lot of things to be said in here. My background, well, I've done a lot of work in the software craftsmanship area. So a lot of people think that software craftsmanship is all about beautiful code, right? It's the perfect solution. So this is annoying me now, because now what we have, as it happens with Scrum, with Agile in general, with XP, things get distorted. Technical excellence doesn't mean like, fuck everything else, I'm going to write a beautiful code in here. Get out of my way. Because this is the perfect solution that I want to create. This never meant that. So software craftsmanship is about pragmatism as well. It's creating a good solution. It's focusing on excellence. Understanding that we have constraints. So within those constraints, you will strive for excellence. But you cannot just say, look, oh, screw that deadline. Oh, if we miss Christmas this year, we have next year anyway. I cannot do that. Certain things, they need to be ready for Christmas, or for Black Friday, or for whatever. Or sometimes you just don't have the budget. So excellence should exist within real constraints, because that's another point. Some people just pull out some constraints out of their arts and say, we have a deadline in 2 weeks. Why? Because I want to put pressure on you. So then, those things we will reject. But excellence only should exist within constraints. So part of this is to have a balance. We want teams to work well. We want people to work well. We want people to be happy at all levels. But we need to, in order to achieve that, what we need to do is to try to achieve a working agreement. And this working agreement, one of the ways, is not the only way, is one of the ways, is talk about rights and responsibilities. You can use the RACI matrix that I mentioned before. It's RACI matrix. Look for that, you'll see. There are different people involved, different activities, and then you can say race is an acronym. So it's RACI, responsibility, accountability, consultant, and informed. So who are responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed? That's a different way of doing this. Also, this list in here is a work in progress. Don't think that do that will work for you. There are many regulated environments where this is not going to work. The important message in here is that you have this conversation, that you agree how you want to work with each other. We have the illusion in the agile world that business and technology are working together. It's an illusion in most places. And the reason that I say there's an illusion is because there's tons of stuff that business people do to define their product, their strategy, what they want to achieve and stuff. And then later on, they will come up with a vague backlog. And they will come up with just the top, the items at the top of the backlog. That's when they start interacting with technology. Technology missed the entire context that they want to achieve. And then they pick just the top items in the backlog, and then they try to optimize, and then they try to architect for the top items without all the context. And I believe that we are having a lot of problems, a lot of monoliths, a lot of architecture that doesn't fit the business because technology is involved way too late. Way too late. This link is way too small. If the only conversation is the top items of the backlog, we will never, Conway's law, as Rebecca was saying, we'll always win. Always. We will never have an architecture that will satisfy or that will enable the business moving forward. This is a keynote given by Mary Poppendick in 2006. So I'm using her ideas in here, so I just want to make it very clear. She gave, look for it, it's called, this keynote's called Friction in the ACE conference in 2016. Look for it because it's an amazing keynote. What she said is that delivery teams are following the old model. Basically, they are taking orders from the business and they are being measured in business outputs. So what is an output? How many user stories have they achieved today? That's the biggest job of an agile coach nowadays. I'm going to provide you a report that this delivery team achieved 8 story points and they have 3 bugs. And who the fuck cares? Right? So while we have these, we are not focusing on the right things. We are focusing like user stories, and we are going to game that. As soon as you say how many story points I need to achieve every iteration, I'm going to game that. I'm going to split my stories in whatever way, and I give you the points. Right? That's what we are going to do. So, but if we unite the two, we have this situation in here because the two are separate, the business and technology. But if you have the two together, then they can start saying, well, let's identify a problem, and let's start solving the problem. And she has like this diagram that says instead of talking about requirements, we start with signals. We try to understand what is happening with our business. What are we missing? What is not working here? And then, instead of features, we say like, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? What are the problems that our clients or people using our systems are having to actually engage with us? So then you try to address problems from who you want to interact. And then, instead of talking about estimates, you can talk about hypotheses. Instead of saying, oh, let's see how many points this user story has or how long it's going to take to create this service or change the database, let's together create a hypothesis. What if we develop this feature? Would this increase the user acquisition? Would it help us to sell more products in this category? So there's a hypothesis. So then you work towards it and you start measuring. And this is a business outcome. That's the difference between a business outcome, saving costs, increasing the sales of a product, user acquisition and retention. Those are business outcomes that you want every time that you do something. Outputs are story points, bugs, and stuff like that. So then, what we can have is instead of having like all these stories, you have hypotheses. You have like, you do experiments, and then you use data to decide if things are working. There is a thing called SEMAT, we used, this is a book by Ivar Jacobson. And they try to understand everything that is involved in a software project. And this is a thinking framework. It's almost a maturity model, but I don't like the word maturity model because people say, oh, maturity model, right? So have a look because it will help you to focus in all the different aspects that will impact the team. Recently, we had a software craftsmanship conference in London, and we were having a discussion. So Uncle Bob was there, Kent Beck, and a few other people, Steve Freeman and Kevin Haney. And the thing was, we go to Agile conferences. Where are the developers? Where are the developers? And then, like, what we were asking ourselves was, are the developers moving away from Agile? Because that's what we decide. So, you know what, developers are saying, like, those people are talking about processes which directly affect us, but we are not involved. We are just communicated what the process is and what we need to do. So then we saw they are moving away from Agile, but I think that what is really happening is that Agile is moving away from developers, because Agile was created by software developers, most of them. And I think that we are moving away from the developers themselves. Wrapping up, business and technology as a single team. Teams should define working agreements through rights and responsibilities. Rights and responsibilities need to be balanced. Problem-solving teams instead of delivery teams. And its external and top-down changes to team composition has a big negative impact on individual motivation. If you are interested in test-driven development, I recorded a full series with Uncle Bob, where we talk a lot about different styles of TDD and how to build APIs and stuff. It's 14 hours of pair programming and coding and stuff. So thank you very much.